nameless at this point, letting the practice know that their fees were going to be cut by 20% in 2015. And they had a fair number of patients that had those benefits. So our team went to work, and by updating all of the coding and going to work on the entire formula that will be presented today, not only was that 20% recouped, but the practice ended up with a 10% increase in revenue instead of a 20% decrease in revenue. And Mary Beth and Tanya will share with you exactly how they went about that, as well as additional information that you'll need to know for 2015. So with that, welcome Mary Beth Brown and Tanya Bailey for today's webinar on maximum reimbursement. Mary Beth?
Well, thank you very much, Steve, and thank you everybody for your attendance and your attention today. Dentistry is an ever-changing world, and the landscape is constantly changing for us all. Sometimes we don't feel as prepared as we'd like, and going into 2015, Tanya and the Total Patient Service Institute's goal is to help you be better prepared. One of the factoids, because I know so many of the attendees that are listening love facts, is that in 2002, 42% of all dental plans sold to employers and employees or individuals in the United States were PPOs. And the astonishing fact is, in today's world, the dental plans that have been sold to employers and employees or individuals is 78% now driven PPO. It's a piece of information that I know that to be aware of, not that that'll change the way we diagnose and practice dentistry, but it just affects our world, as Steve had said earlier. So our goal is to find out ways of how we can deal with this new reality. How do we make an increase out of a decrease or a change in benefits that patients are being sold by their insurance companies? So the world of optimal services is upon us, and that's where we would like to focus our attention and our care for our individuals that are coming in to see us. And you know, optional services are going to be things that are going to be more expensive and more than likely not covered by their basic plan that they've been sold. So basic services are what are most oftenly covered, and optimal service or optional service is what patients often want. Our question is to you and to your practices that are online is, what is your definition of optimal service in your practice? Can we bill the patient for this optional services? That's often the question, is if the patient has been diagnosed to have a crown and this area is a non-cosmetic area of their mouth, and it is going to have a beautiful porcelain crown placed back there, maybe the 2740 code, their insurance company only offers them a base metal crown, which might be the 2752. So who's responsible for the difference? The dentist, the practice, the patient, or the insurance company? And so we ask you as a team to look at that information and come up with the answer that best fits your office before the services are provided. So several questions that we have listed that we felt would be helpful in doing your evaluation prior to providing services are asking additional questions about the policy's plan specific services. For example, clear orthodontic appliances versus traditional metal bands. Is that optional service or is that basic service? Porcelain crowns in non-aesthetic areas that we just talked about. Acrylic clasps on partials versus metal clasps on partials. Composite restorations instead of amalgams. Gingival irrigation laser therapy, same-day crowns, the CAD cams, the E4Ds, the CERACs, implants versus partial dentures or bridges, full coverage crowns if a tooth is cracked and does not meet the payer or the insurance company's criteria for coverage, indirect restorations versus composite fillings or direct restorations. So these were several questions that as we visited practices around the United States, that we found there was a milled line between basic services and optional services. And it was always an uncomfortable conversation to have with the patient after the fact versus before. So as I hand the microphone over to Tanya, my cohort in crime, to talk to you about some maximizing coding opportunities, I hope you've made a list of these questions so that you can have a team meeting and sit down with your team and discuss where these procedures fall. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Tanya.
Great. Thank you so much, Mary Beth. Those are great questions that we all need to be asking ourselves. And when we're asking ourselves, I would also recommend on these optional services that we really check into when Mary Beth said who's going to be responsible for the remainder of the dentist fee, making sure that we know what our contracts have assigned to us and who we're allowed to charge. Many times there are allowances in your contracts to balance bill that patient. And I know Mary Beth's going to talk about that a little bit more later on. So make sure that you know whether or not you're allowed to charge only for the basic service or if you can, in fact, balance bill for those optional services.
Tanya,
So
would you be sure to speak into your microphone as loudly as you can and directly into your microphone?
Is that better? Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. So when we look at the next slide, we have put together a series of codes for maximizing multi-codes. And before we talk about what all those codes are, it makes it a lot more efficient and effective if you actually set these up in your software. So your software programs will have a process called either multi-code or explosion codes. And you can put multiple codes together so that when treatment planning, with the click of one button on a quick button, you can treatment plan an entire series of codes for one procedure. And just as a side note, most of the softwares will actually allow you to put a multi-code in a multi-code, so you're not just limited to the 10 codes in the multi-code. For example, if you put 10 codes into a multi-code and put a multi-code into another multi-code, you'd actually have 20 line items. And we actually also call that value-added services. So even if you're not dealing with a contracted plan, you can still list all the things that you're providing for the service, even if it's at a zero fee, to increase the perceived value by the patient. So on this slide, we're looking at maximizing the multi-codes for a crown. And when we were talking before about this case study that we did in a practice in New England, to start with, when they were billing for a crown, they simply were coding a $27.40. And they were very comfortable with their fee, and they felt like all of the wonderful things that they were doing were inclusive of that. And so that's the only thing that was coded. When they were stunned with the announcement that their fee schedules are going to be reduced, naturally they started looking for ways to recoup that write-off. And so we started looking at all the things they were already doing that simply had a code that could be assigned to them. So the first was the build-up. And there's two choices here. You wouldn't use both, but you would use one or the other. But we have the traditional 2950 build-up, and then a newer code, which is a 2949, which is a restorative foundation for an indirect restoration. And Mary Beth's going to tell us exactly how to use that code a little bit later on. In addition, desensitizing. If you're using Gluma or another product that's going to help desensitize that tooth, again, code 9910 for that. And then many times we find that providers are having to create restorative access, either with a laser or an electrosurge, something to access that margin. And the restorative access code for that was introduced a couple of years ago is the D5820. And then most practices are taking a preoperative PA, and I would strongly recommend that because it's completely necessary for good claim submission. And then a postoperative PA at the seat or delivery of that crown, so that you can not only verify good clean fit, but just have a post-op film to refer back to year after year. And then finally, a dental warranty. Many of our practices have found a substantial increase in revenue by providing peace of mind. And that peace of mind is not only just for the patient, but it's really for the provider as well, because you don't have to have any more of those difficult conversations about who's responsible when a patient has recurrent decay or bid on something that may have not been the best choice. So when we add all of those codes together, we can come up with not a loss, as Steve said, of 20%, but rather in the practice in New England, we ended up with a 10% gain just by coding what we were already doing. So we'll go ahead and look at the next slide. We've put together a few more multi-codes so that we can maximize how we're coding. With our filling codes, our composite restorations, we can also add in surgical procedure for isolation of a tooth. That's a rubber dam, D3910. And again, we can also desensitize that area, a D9910. And then once more, we can add in that dental warranty. And I would also just, again, going back to being efficient, I would suggest setting up your dental warranty codes by procedure so that you don't have to manually figure out what that amount is each time. You can just have that set up, and then you can easily treatment plan on the fly and make it super simple and easy. I know we're all looking for that easy button in our busy, busy days. Our next slide is our x-rays. Now, most practices take their x-rays on at least an annual basis, but many plans, in fact, most plans that I've seen, allow bite wing x-rays several times a year, up to 2 times per year. So there's a couple of ways that you can maximize that coding and, of course, provide a great benefit to the patient. Our foundation is always you do the right thing for the right reason and the money follows. So another interesting case study that I saw last year in a practice where they were taking 4 posterior bite wings on a regular basis annually, and they started using the 4 bite wing code twice a year. And what they would do is they would take posterior bite wings at one visit. 6 months later, they would take anterior bite wings. And about 6 months into that process, one of the doctors came to me and said, I am amazed at the things that I am finding that I had never seen before. So again, we're satisfying that most important piece of the puzzle, which is providing stellar care to our patients. In addition to coding your 4 bite wings, creating a multi-code and adding your first and additional PA. We'd recommend limiting it to 2 PAs because if you take more than 2, typically insurances will then change that to a full mouth or a pano type of a code. And then, of course, they restrict those benefits to once every 3 or once every 5 years. You create your multi-code with your 4 bite wings and 2 PAs. That gives you the ability to take a look perhaps at teeth that have already been endo-treated, or you may need an anterior PA. You may be checking on an implant on a regular basis, or you may have a patient who simply has an area of concern that you need to see the apex of that tooth. Our next option, and I'm going to let Mary Beth share a little bit more about this, are endo or root canal therapy codes and our surgery codes. Mary Beth, take it away.
Oh, thank you so much, Tanya. It's always fun to work with you. We've had a very interesting time putting together this information for you guys as practicers in the office. Of course, we know that your typical endodontic procedure has multiple different roots. So we've got the 3 different codes to handle whether it's a single, a double, or a triple root canal. What's really important is that we utilize the closure access hole for endodontic treatment, whether it's the 2140, the 2230, or the 2391. It's being recommended that we do not, if we're just closing the access hole for a filling, that we use a filling code and we don't use a buildup code. If you are utilizing and placing a post and core, of course, please feel free to use that code. The 3910 is the surgical procedure, again, just like Tanya had shared, for placing the rubber dam. It's a code that they've provided for us for safety for the patients. We use it, most people use it on a regular basis, but very infrequently are we finding that it's been charged for. So feel free to use that code. And then, of course, the dental warranty, you know, peace of mind. Endodontic treatment is a phenomenal way to get rid of infection, but oftentimes they do fail. And when they fail, this gives the patient the peace of mind of knowing that they can go into an implant or another restoration, and the money that they've invested and the time that the doctor's invested's not been for naught. So it gives them a nice 5-year window of comfort. And then once a year, it's been recommended that we do monitoring of all endodontic procedures. So the 0220, which is the single PA, making sure that we put that in the patient's chart so that on a regular basis we go back and monitor to make sure that the infection has stayed closed. So again, some offices do endodontic procedures in-house and or have a specialist come to their office and provide this procedure for the patients. Others do it themselves. These are multiple different codes and ways that you can be more successful with your endodontic treatment. I hope we've given you some food for thought and new ideas there. Let's move forward and talk about our next, which is going to be the periodontal maintenance program. You know, everybody is becoming more comfortable and confident with the systemic link, and that once a patient has had a bacterial infection in the soft tissue, that keeping them in that 4910 maintenance program is really important. It helps them realize that they have more than a healthy mouth cleaning when they're coming in, and we make sure that we keep them on track so that they don't have to go back through the non-surgical therapy. Dr. Blair recommended in 2012 that we don't alternate between the 1110, the healthy mouth cleaning, and the 4910. However, insurance companies may downgrade or alternate code on us when we provide the 4910. Remember that if the patient still shows signs and symptoms of periodontal disease, which means bone loss and recession and pocketing, we need to keep them in that periodontal maintenance program. Now, often our hygienists have been faced with soft tissue infection that's come back during this periodontal maintenance appointment, and they've got bleeding points that they're not comfortable with. And last year, the 4921 irrigation code with medications was given to us to utilize and track. This code is not by mouth, it's by quadrant. So you can lavage the area in the mouth with a chlorhexidine rinse to give them that medication irrigation and decontaminate the area for the patient. Right now, there are, of course, the code is only a year old, so the insurance companies have not standardized a fee schedule on that. So we just recommend that this is done per office so that it takes care of your patients and your practice. And it can be used as often as the patient shows signs and symptoms as bleeding. And again, it's a great code to have a team meeting around and establish how many bleeding points and how often you feel that the irrigation would be appropriate for your patients. So hopefully that's food for thought. And yes, ma'am.
Can I just add one tidbit on that 4921 code?
Please.
This is, this code got me so excited last year, and it has just been amazing because we all know that there are many times where we're irrigating with chlorhexidine and not even just in a perio-maintenance situation, but perhaps in a teenager with some early signs of gingivitis. That might be something appropriate that you're doing, and now we have a way to code and bill for that. And so the 4921, the only limitation in force as of right now is that it cannot be used at the same time as scaling and root planing. So you would not code it in conjunction with 4341 or 4342. That's inclusive of that procedure code. You can, however, charge it out by the quadrant, so 1, 2, 3, or 4 quads, at the same time as an 1110 prophylaxis or a 4910 perio maintenance. So should you find that early gingivitis situation, make sure that you're taking advantage of coding if you're using a Cavitron with medication inside of it.
Oh, Tanya, great insight. Thank you so much for sharing that. And not doing it at the same time of root planing and scaling is really important. I mean, you could, but billing-wise, it would be complicated. Fantastic. Good food for thought. Let's move forward. We've got another grouping of multi-codes for the oral surgery group. I know a lot of offices still do their own extractions, and many offices we've had the opportunity of working with are now placing implants. And the osseous grafting, or what we would call socket preservation or ridge preservation, the 7953, placing bone in the site of the extracted tooth, is still something, as we're doing our coding and our watching our statistics, is not as prevalent a practice, whether that's personal preference or practice preference, I'm not sure, but it's such a phenomenal code, and it really helps the ridge stay preserved for implants or restorations of some other sort later on. And of course, the 6104 is the bone grafting done at the time of implants. So if the tooth is being removed, the implant's being placed, and then this is the grafting is being placed around that. Two excellent codes that the ADA has given us to use. Now, some people do and some people don't also utilize the guided tissue regeneration, and this is a membrane that's placed on top of the bone graft to keep the bone graft in place while the tissue is healing. So it's the 4266 or 4267. The 67 is a membrane that is non-resorbable. The 66 is resorbable. And they need to be coded separately, so if you are doing bone grafting and placing a membrane, please make sure to use both of the codes because they're not inclusive of one another. So along with your extraction, these are two additional codes to utilize and help you maximize your surgery as well. Let's move forward and let's talk about the third area and reason that people can lose their teeth in dentistry when we're doing the exam. We talked about the caries earlier, or the cavities, and cavity detection, and we've talked about soft tissue infection or periodontal disease, and we haven't talked very much about occlusion. And I know the Crown Council is really strong on occlusion, and there's a lot of great variances and appliances that can be used, and different modalities of treating that. The two codes that we've been given to utilize to maximize the dental benefit, at least, is the 9940, and I don't know if you noticed this or not, but the periodontal guard. So the 9940 can be used in conjunction with any patient that has had periodontal treatment, non-surgical therapy, that has mobility going on with their teeth. It doesn't always have to just be because they're grinding their teeth. Could be that they're doing both, but make sure that you realize that that can be used for that specific code. I was really excited when I saw that in the new CDT 15. And then the 7880, of course, is the orthotic device for TMJ or TMD, so a bit different than the 9940 dealing with occlusal. Tanya, was there anything additional you'd like to add on either one of those slides?
And you know, and I would just make sure that you always add that dental warranty on those guards. Last year, I was in a practice and a patient called because his new orthotic had hit the tile floor in the bathroom and broken in half, and he was distraught. And when the team reminded him that he had a dental warranty, he was so happy, and he really attributed his happiness to the team. And he was just thrilled. And in fact, he was so thrilled that he promptly bought another 5-year dental warranty on his new appliance.
Nice.
Really one of the best. I mean, everything, all the restorative work that you do, the warranty is a great tool, but it really provides great peace of mind for patients on these occlusal guards or orthotics.
Oh, you know, and I know when you get water in your hands and something, you know, hard, whether it's a denture or whether it's a retainer or a bite guard, night guard, orthotic, they do get slippery. So dropping them is probably not too uncommon. You know, I've had you always hear about the dog eating the homework. I've heard about dogs eating orthotics too.
Absolutely.
I would think maybe that would be another good reason to add that warranty on there as well.
Absolutely.
Well, moving forward, we've got the next one, which is one of your favorites to talk about. Would you like to take this one?
Absolutely. Adult fluoride. You know, when kids turn 15, all of a sudden they don't stop needing fluoride treatment. And most of our providers and practices in the Crown Council and at TOPS tell us that when they're having their teeth cleaned or they're having their maintenance, they wouldn't go without a fluoride varnish treatment. And so we have the 1206 varnish or 1208 fluoride delivery. We strongly recommend that on all of your hygiene patients, and our best practices get about 90 to 95% acceptance on the fluoride. So you can run the numbers very easily. You already know it's the right thing to do. Run a report and look at the numbers of prophy and perio maintenance procedures that you did last year, and just multiply that by 20. That's a fairly low cost that provides a high value, and see what that potential revenue would be if, say, 80% of those patients had a fluoride treatment. So I would just build that in the multi-code, and that's certainly something, if you need some verbiage on how to present that to patients, we can absolutely help you with that. Mary Beth?
Fantastic. Thanks, Tanya. Well, you know, it all adds up, and every penny counts. The multiple codes that we've given you today will at least spark, if not give you, what's the old saying? Don't recreate the wheel, copy genius. Don't recreate mediocrity. And so hopefully the codes that we've given you today will allow you to maximize your procedures you're currently doing and add to your bottom line. I wanted to share with you guys also that it's 2015 and the Crown Council, Greg and Stuart and Annie and everybody there are happy to make sure that you get your customized by zip code 2015 fee schedule update. So if you will not bombard them all prior to the annual event, but in the next 9 months with a request, they will be happy to provide that service to you directly to your office. So please make that on your to-do list.
And Mary Beth, and I would make sure that when you get that fee schedule analysis, that you import your fees out of your practice management software into that Excel file and draw a comparison and see where you fall. It gives a range from the 40th up to the 95th percentile. And you really want to make sure that your UCR fees are at least in the 85 to 90th percentile. If you find that you have fees lower than that, then it's very likely that you could be actually charging less than what many insurances allow. on their non-PPO fee schedule. So you just really want to make sure that you update that every year and take a look.
Ah, great advice, and importing it in is such a wonderful idea. It will allow you to see also keep track of what fees you've raised and how much you've raised them over the years to go as well. So thank you so much for that, Tanya. We're going to move forward and we're going to do a little recap from last year. Can you believe it's been 360 plus days since we had our last meeting in January, and there were 84 code changes in 2013, and then in 2014 we had an additional 29 new codes, 3 new categories, 18 revisions, and so I'm going to go back and make sure that there are a couple that we revisit so that you can make sure that you're maximizing your submission codes correctly. So Tanya and I talked a bit earlier about the 2949. It's the Restorative Foundation for Indirect Restorations. It's a fancy code, fancy name for a non-buildup. And what I'm seeing in the 2015 CDT codes is that if 60% of the structure of the tooth is missing, not just restoration and cavity, but that it's missing 60% of the tooth, they're going to allow us to use the 2950 code or the full buildup. So if there's marginal missing of the tooth, you're going to be better served and have less narratives to write if you're going to use the 2940 code. The gingival irrigation that Tanya had talked about earlier was a new code for us for last year, the 4921 by quadrant. They had 500,000 submissions of this code, and so they were very excited to see how dentists are utilizing this code. As Tanya pointed out earlier, if you have a child that has bleeding and they are not a periodontal, but they've got bleeding, it's a great time to use that code. A healthy mouth patient comes in, or they think they're a healthy mouth patient, but they've got bleeding. It's perfect to use the irrigation. They're not ready for root planing and scaling, but they definitely have got a soft tissue infection. You can find multiple reasons that patients have got bleeding points in their mouth, and home care, brushing and flossing is just not going to be enough to take care of it. So please feel free to use the gingival irrigation code to help your patients eradicate that infection. The 5994 is an odd little code, and it was created to carry specific medications to it's called the Perio Protect. So it's a laboratory process that created a specific carrier for patients that have got a periodontal issue, and the Perio Protect company has gotten the okay to have this code used for it. It can't be used for fluoride carrying trays, and it can't be used for whitening trays, but with the periodontal medication carrier you can use that. The repair and fixing of retainers, including, this is reattaching, so you've got somebody that comes in and they need to have their orthodontic lingual wire rebonded. This is the code to use for that. It's an 8694. I know that in the past we always would ask, well, what code do we use if we need to rebond one? This is the reattachment or the rebonding of the orthodontic retainer. Okay, here it comes, 2015. We have a few new codes to add to our playbook. So the first one is an exam code. It's a 0171. It's the reevaluation of post-operative. So if somebody has had, let's say, root planing and scaling done, and they need to come back in 4 to 6 weeks for an evaluation on healing, the 0171 is the code to use. If a patient has had extractions done, and multiple extractions done, and you wanted to see their post-healing, 2 to 4 weeks after the extractions, it would be a 0171 extraction code that you're able to use. Sealant repair. Oh my gosh, they finally realized that sealants don't stay on forever. And of course, we can't use the original code, which was the 1351. That's when we placed the sealant for the first time. So when a sealant is chipping or a portion of it is missing and you need to reapply a sealant to the tooth, the new recommended code is a 1353. The idea behind this is that sealants do fail, and if they are not removed and replaced, they cause more harm than they did good to the tooth. And the dental community wanted to track how many sealants were being replaced every year to see if there was, and when there was only the one code, the 1351, it was very difficult to discern between which were replacements and which were original placements or replacements. That was tongue-tied. Okay, you know, removable dentures we thought were going to go away, and there are 8 new codes to help us with fixed and removable orthotics for patients. They're implant supported, so the 6110 is going to be implant supported removable, so that means that the patient can take it in and out in between visits. And then they've of course made it for the mandibular as well, so 6111. And then we've got a removable partial that's also edentulous, so it's partially edentulous, and this is implant supported as well. So it's the 6112, and then for the mandibular arch it would be a 6113. So what they've done is they've taken away 2 codes and added 4 so they can keep up with maxillary and mandibular implant supported prosthetics. There's 4 more because I said there were 8. So there's 6114 for implant supported fixed. Now this would be the type of procedure where the patient cannot remove them in between hygiene visits. They actually are screw retained, and the dentist actually has to remove them to do any cleaning, different than the 6110 group. So 6115, of course, would be the same thing. It would be an implant supported fixed denture, fully edentulous, but for the lower arch. 6116 is implant supported partially edentulous for the maxillary arch, and then 6117 is the implant supported fixed for the mandibular arch. So we've got the 4 codes for the implant retained prosthetics: 6110, 6111, 6112, and 6113. Remember, were the removable family. And then 14 through 17 are going to be for the fixed arch. So just about the time we thought removable prosthetics were going away, we got 8 new codes. You know, Tanya, I don't know if you've seen as you've gone around the country or not, that the Essex retainer being utilized in a way for healing in offices as patients are getting ready for implant-supported prosthetics or cosmetics that just are going to be done in stages. And so the Essex retainer has been given a code so that we can utilize it. Often before, we didn't have a way to discern how to build this out. So they've given us 2 different choices. We can use it as a interim partial denture, either maxillary or mandibular, the 5820 or the 5821. We used to call those a flipper, and I always wondered where the pancakes were going to be. And then we have also, if it's going to be used to hold the space, not just look cosmetic or kind of a party smile, but if it's going to hold the space for where the implants are going to go or where the cosmetic dentistry is going to be, then we would use it a little different code. We'd use the 1520 as a space maintainer. And if it happens to be in the middle of the front of the mouth and it crosses the midline for that space maintainer, we would use the 1525. So those are 4 ways that we can report an Essex retainer in interim tooth replacement during healing or integration of implants, which I thought was pretty cool. You know, sedation dentistry has been a part of our lives now for a long time, since the 80s. And often an anesthesiologist or a specialist will be coming into the office to help with the patient's comfort and getting the general anesthesia ready for them. And that specialist often has not had a chance to meet the patient and go over their vital signs and have a great understanding of medical history, as well as any of their personal developed a personal relationship with that patient. And you know, we know when you can sit knee to knee and eye to eye with somebody and give them comfort before you actually do a procedure on them. Steve has shared with us that 2 to 5 minute conversations with a patient will allow them to build that trust and the relationship necessary to keep you maybe out of a legal conversation. It's been said that people don't sue people that they like, but finding the time and making the time is often the difficult part. The record keeping and making sure that the specialist has the opportunity to meet with the patients has been given to the 9219 code. So evaluation for sleep sedation should not be used by the general dentist that the patient actually is currently being seen with, but only if a specialist is coming in or an anesthesiologist is coming in to meet that patient. Oh my gosh, look at here, 9931. Yeah, how exciting. So now somebody that has a bite guard, night guard, denture, partial, and anything else that they would like you to remove and clean, along with their either healthy mouth cleaning or their 4910, you have got a code for cleaning and a way to get payment for cleaning appliances during your appointments. Now, I do not think you can use this for cleaning jewelry, so don't try. If they ask you to clean their rings, I don't know that I would do the 9931 code. How about you, Tom?
Yeah, that's probably not a great idea.
Yeah, partials, dentures, night guards, bite guards, but no rings under the 9931 code. Well, we're coming in for landing here. We've got another interesting code. Oh my gosh, missed appointments and canceled appointments. Nobody ever has those, do they? Well, the ADA and the CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, decided that it would be a great idea if universally we in the dental field used the same codes for tracking our patients' history, just like we track everything else, on how often they do not come to an appointment or they cancel an appointment. I thought that was really a unique idea, because I know, Tanya, if you've looked at end of the month reports like I have, there are more codes out there for incidentals and others that there would be no way to be able to standardize it. So in this way, they've given us all the same code to use. So 9986 is for missed appointments, and 9987 are going to be for canceled appointments, posted to the patient's ledger.
A quick tip on that one.
Oh, please.
I would strongly recommend that on your appointment book view, if that happens to come up, that you have a missed or canceled appointment and canceled within that 24-hour window, go ahead and post it into just a 10-minute appointment block on your appointment book view. So when you're looking back historically 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, you can get a great visual of what was going on. Because when we look back historically, if all we see are holes, it begs the question, were they just never filled, or did somebody cancel? So in addition to tracking it on the ledger or on the procedure code analysis, you know, we all know that 84% of communication is visual. So if we can go back and see that on our appointment books, it just gives us more information about our practices.
Oh, great idea, Tanya. Great idea. So as you bill your patients, of course, when they have a missed appointment, they're going to get a ledger history, and it's going to show how many times they've missed or how many times they've canceled. So it will give both of us a very clear conversation that we can have on the value of that they place on us and we place on them. So I thought that was a great idea that we now can all use the same 2 codes. I'd really like to reach out and acknowledge the American Dental Association, the ADA, for leading and helping develop the CDT code books for us. I've been using them for a long time now. I think I remember the CD1 book. And
you're giving it away, Mary Beth.
I know, it was a smaller book back then too. Oh, but they just have done such a great job for making things accessible to us. And then, you know, Dr. Charles Blair at Practice Boosters and Insurance Solutions newsletters also are just great adjunctive ways to keep current, and there are go-to references. So Tanya and Pam and Chris and all the other practice advisors at the Total Patient Service Institute really reach out to these 2 organizations when it comes to coding questions, and they're the experts, and we like to make sure that we stay in congruency with what their recommendations are. Tanya, did you have anything else you'd like to add on that?
You know, Mary Beth, I think you've done a great job and covered a lot of information. Our goal today was to give you the tools to make sure that you can maximize your coding and maximize your value-added services, and most importantly, continue to create great revenue streams so that you're coding and billing correctly so that your top line and your bottom line look as great as they can look.
Oh, well put, Tanya Bailey, well put. One of the things I did not go back, and I would love to make sure that I go back and highlight, and you called it to my attention, Tanya, so thank you. It was called balance billing for upgraded services. And if you happen to be an in-network provider, you have someone on your team, other than Tanya and I, called the benefits representative. And so every person that is in network, every practice that's in network has a benefits representative for each company that they are working hand in hand with. And that would be your go-to person for any of the questions we had earlier about billing, for the difference between optional services and basic services and being able to balance bill. So please feel free to reach out to those in-network relationship representatives or your benefit representatives. And then, of course, we at the Total Patient Service Institute are here to serve. If there's anything that we can personally do to make this an easy 2015 transition for you, please reach out, and we are happy to help.
Ready for a few questions?
Sure. Do we have any?
All right. Let me just ask, give you a couple. First, we've been asked a number of times since you went through the slides a little rapidly where people can find this information. The recorded webinar, we are recording this. It will be available on the Crown Council's website at crowncouncil.org. It's under the training tab, then go to webinars, and the entire webinar will be there for your reference. There have been a number of questions about what the Total Patient Service might do to provide more information for offices who wish it. We will also send this along in email format and post it with the webinar. But the Total Patient Service Institute does have a very organized 10-point tune-up system that they are more than happy to enact in your office if you would like some help in optimizing your treatment planning and coding and financial arrangements. On the screen right now is a phone number and an email address, and I'd suggest that those of you who don't have it, write those down. If you call that phone number or send an email to that email address at answers@totalpatientservice.com, they can give you more information about that. They'll do a little free consult with you and see if you might be interested in a little guaranteed return on investment to have that optimization done in your practice. We are not going to have time to go through the 19 specific questions. We are going to deal with dental warranty here in a minute, but can I suggest that those of you who had specific questions about specific codes, if you would send those directly to answers@totalpatientservice.com, and Mary Beth and Tanya will answer those individually. Most of them are very specific questions, and I don't think in the 6 minutes we have left we're going to get through them all, and I don't want to leave anybody hanging. Finally, the thing we had the most questions about today, and maybe you can just give everybody some background. There are many who probably have not heard about dental warranty. So we have questions like, what exactly do you mean dental warranty? Can I charge for dental warranty? What is dental warranty? Is there an additional cost for dental warranty? How do we bill for dental warranty? Would you like to run that up the flagpole?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, Tanya, why don't you go ahead and explain it, and then I'll give everybody some detail behind it.
Okay, fantastic. So dental warranty, I don't know if I'm going to go in the exact order of the specific questions that Greg just shot out, but hopefully I will cover all the bases. So dental warranty is a fantastic tool. In fact, it's the only third-party legitimate warranty in dentistry today. And what the dental warranty provides you is an actual written warranty.
Every once in a while, patient comes. Sorry about that.
Hi, Steve.
Provides, that's good music. Provides an actual written warranty for up to 5 years that the patient is able to have their restorations, really their investment protected. You do charge for it. There's an additional fee, and it provides a front-end revenue stream to the practice, and there is, of course, a fee to the practice for it, but you recoup that from the patient. And then on the other side of it, in the event that the patient needs to file a claim, say a recurrent caries issue or a broken crown or a filling has come out or they dropped that occlusal guard on the ground and it broke, they're able to have that restoration repaired or replaced at no cost to them, and then the dental provider can actually file a claim and be reimbursed generally within a couple of weeks. And one of the best parts of dental warranty is it's actually portable. And what that means is it's not something that has to be replaced or redone at the original providing office. If a patient was here in Dallas and had work done and it was covered by warranty and they moved to pick anywhere in the United States and had a problem. Salt Lake City. There's a couple of dentists there. They would be able to have that service taken care of for them at either a provider of their choosing or one that the dental warranty company could direct them to. So it's really a win-win-win. And one of my clients really put it the best when he said, you know, this is for me, not for the patient, because I no longer have to have that uncomfortable, weird conversation about why I'm not going to replace something for free. It provides very clear expectations on the front end of what's covered, and it's a no risk, no fault. So Really, everything is covered with the exception of malpractice, which is not going to happen on this call, or on the removable appliances. They do actually have to be produced. It does not cover loss. So did I cover those bullet points, Greg?
Yeah, that's
Yes,
great.
you did. Well, Steve, do you want to add to that?
Information on dental warranty, you can go to dentalwarranty.net or call 800-691-7234. Again, that's 800-691-7234. Disclaimer on this, just so everybody's on the same page. Dental warranty was developed in a Crown Counsel office at the request of a patient, and so we've had a tremendous amount of involvement in developing this and making sure that it works. So we've got a big stake in this and making sure that it's successful. It's been around for quite a while now, over 5 years, so very proven, and it's got a good track record. Greg, other questions?
You know, we've got a bunch of them. I've sent them to you, and I think the best thing for us to do would be to have each of those people send them directly to answers@totalpatientservice.com and get the specific question answered. In the meantime, I have sent them all to Tanya and Mary Beth and yourself, and why don't we send all of those answers back out in a written form, and we'll post it with the webinar so that everybody will have access to it.
Good idea. Thanks for being with us today, everybody. Hope that gives you a good start for the new year on how to maximize your reimbursement. A lot more work to do there, so feel free to send us your questions, and we will shoot back answers and work together to help everybody be successful in the new year. Thanks for being with us for our webinar today. Look forward to seeing everyone at the annual event in just a few weeks and for our next webinar. Have a great day.